In this video, I will be assembling a Railway Design Associates styrene structure. And this is the company that manufactures the item. And here is a photograph from the finished structure from the instruction sheet. And this is the part one where I will be doing the initial putting the paint on and the base paint and the preparation of the items for the final assembly. And the first thing, of course, we want to do when we get our product in the mail is to check our materials over and make sure that everything is in the container. Then we want to get our supplies together, our supplies for assembly. And I'm using just regular spray paint purchased at Walmart. And I have the Rust-Oleum primer, the 2-time cover, and the just some Rust-Oleum ultra cover white paint, flat. And this is all I've used to get the initial paint on. And we also want to get together some sandpaper, and the recommendation is 320 grit. I have a soft piece of cloth, a razor blade or X-Acto knife, and I will be using Gorilla Glue to bond the items together. And I've noticed that there is a couple different formulas of Gorilla Glue, and one of them has some little like white bubbles in it. But make sure you get the right one that does not that cures clear. And this one I know works good. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is the paint technique, and I just use the white in the primer and a few different steps there. And at any time you can pause and write these down if you need to. Our pre-assembly, cutting the pieces off, the sprue, the sanding, and our initial glue. And we're going to talk about the order for putting the windows in. So let's just get going right off the bat here. We'll talk about how the technique used for spraying. And I used about a 4-step technique, and it took me a few days, but it was only a few minutes each time. And the initial treatment was I sprayed a light coat of the white, and then I followed it with a coating of the primer. And that is how I treated all of these materials. And then I let it sit for 24 hours. And that only took a few minutes. And notice that I actually left everything on the sprue when I did the painting. And that's a little bit different from the instructions. He talked about taking everything off the sprue first, but I left everything on for ease of handling. And these are all the different sprues. And I think it worked quite well. So the second step I did was I just went ahead and I sprayed just a coat of primer on top of that. And so I had a pretty good coating of primer on there. And waited 24 hours, so it was just a solid gray, pretty much just like this. And then the third thing I did after that waiting period was I just sprayed some areas of white, just the white paint, and I used the piece of cloth, and I rubbed after about 5 minutes, or within 5 minutes, I rubbed the paint to rub off the top surface of the paint, and some of the white paint was left in the cracks, which brought out some of the fissures in the rocks. And I noticed I get a little bit of variation, which is good. And you can see, like down here, most of it's rubbed off. It gives you a natural stone look, and other places there's more of the white left on. And I noticed that even now, a few days later, I can go ahead and I can rub on that somewhat and alter the appearance by taking off some of the spray flecks. So you can just continue on rubbing and spraying as much as you have to get the desired effect. But I was really happy with this effect. And I conducted some research on the Model Railroad Forum website in preparation for putting this model together, and I noticed that the quality of the final product is based more on this preparation of your walls than anything else. So in other words, even though this cost only $25, I think our outcome is going to be something that's going to look like something that costs far more. Now on this one you can also see some of the variation I got in the rock, and had I rubbed it more, you know, I could have the whole model looking like this. But I think it looks nice to have the different shades in place. And also remember that this is going to be mostly seen from a few feet away, and unless you're taking real close-up photographs, all the details are going to show up. But you can keep on doing this until you get to the desired point of where you want to be. So so that's the initial getting the paint ready, and it's a few-day process, but it's well worth the time as far as your what you're looking at here. Now once you have them painted, the first thing they talk about doing is taking the pieces off the sprue. And it was just as simple as a new razor blade, and I just make a real clean cut, press the razor blade up against the building, and then my pressure, and it just snaps right through. And this is called styrene, and it seems like it's softer than plastic. But it works quite easily with the razor blade. I mean, it goes through real easy, and there you have that. And like here, I must have there, you know. So these pieces are also easy to get off. The only difficulty I had was in these corners, a few of these corners right here, these inside corners right here. I had to just score this part with the razor blade and then twist it. And the razor blade did work better than the X-Acto knife on these, and I think it was because it's considerably sharper. So these pieces, I got all the little ears cut off on these, and then I had to go through and figure out which one was the inside wall and which one was going to be the outside wall. And then this one, it's obvious looking closely, you know, it's got all the stone detail, and this one here had more of a beveled edge on there and no detail. So this is the inside wall, and what they recommend is to take a piece of sandpaper and to flatten that, because it does come somewhat beveled. So I already worked on this for a few minutes, but you want to get that flat. And then the way I checked it was I took a straight edge and like this and held it up there, and you could use a sanding block to make sure that it gets nice and flat too. But get a nice flat edge. This edge is not going to show. The edge that's going to show, you could take a knife and clean that up a little bit, and then where there's a rock that's going, like right where your sprue, your little ear was, you can just take and just kind of finish off that rock like this. And that's what I did, and it adds a lot. After you do the final assembly, you can come around with a paintbrush and some gray paint and to fix up these little things like that. But this was just an easy little exercise with the paint, with the knife, but you can see it added a lot here. This part is going to have some roof glued to it as well, and so you want to get that flat, and either you can use the razor blade or the sandpaper, a combination of them. Here's another part that should be rock, and then this needs to be flattened as well. So on this part, there's a few areas where you want it nice and flat, here and here on this piece, and this one I already got that flat. And then these, again, to repeat, this is the stone that's going to be showing. So we have our sanding done, we have the initial prep work done, and we can talk about the windows a little bit. And I'm going to wait till almost the end to put my windows on, because he has a good idea here for weathering, where you just kind of let the paints run down. And I don't want to, I like to put the little glass or the clear plastic in my windows, and I don't want to get any of my weathering paint on that. But here's the sprue with the windows and the doors, and I did paint this, and I got a little bit of a primer on it just for a little bit of variation. And these are going to be cut out, and they're going to go in like that. And then I like to have the plastic on the back. And if I want, I could, you know, paint these a different color, do all sorts of different things with it. But I can leave that decision till the end. This here one up here, they have some brick sections, and I can do those different too. I can do those with red and rub them and get a different effect on those too, depending on what I want to do there. So anyway, so we got that paint on. We're at the pre-assembly stage. The sprues and the sand are all done, and then we talked about some of the concerns with the windows. And like I said, I've decided to do that pretty much almost last. But the next part of the pre-assembly that we're gonna do, the last thing for this video, is we're gonna glue one corner on, and that's how I like to do all my models, is to get one corner and to get it perfectly, what I call perfectly square. And I know that's the most important thing, so to make your roof to look nice. And I see I have a little bit of a sprue showing up here in a few different spots. So, but this part here, it's got a little bit of stone detail in it, so I think I'm just going to use the razor blade. And there's a big one sticking up. And so do as much as I can before I assemble it, because once you assemble it, there's always the risk of kind of handling it rough and the thing falling apart on you, and then kind of having to start with some re-gluing and stuff. So so there I have that. This one here wants to stick up a little bit too much, so we'll take that a little bit better, and that one there, and just get it as good as we can now. And there's always finishing touches that we can do after we assemble it. So, and this side has been sanded, this side has been sanded. These are going to be glued like this. I did paint the inside, so it could go either like this, or else we could glue this one on first. And I'm just seeing kind of which matches up the best, and I think I'm going to rub this a little bit more with the cloth to get to try to match the effect a little bit better. So to kind of rub off some of the paint, and we can always do more touch-up too after we assemble it. And in fact, I could probably, if I had an airbrush, if we use the airbrush technique, we could do something different there too. But just using the stuff I have, we're gonna do it like this. And so that's how we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna start with. So I did take the razor blade, and I did spray paint the back side too, because I'm gonna put a light in there, and I just like to do everything as soon as I can. And I went and I took the razor blade and I scraped off some of the paint where these two joints are going to come together. And I just did that like this, and I set it down, and the paint scrapes off real easy. And I'm a little reluctant to get the sand. Maybe I'll just do some light sanding with this emery where our joints are, just to roughen it up a little bit. And it might be easier to do that now too. This one here, I see I didn't scrape at all yet, so just scrape that paint off there. And then this one, we already got that one pretty good. There, and then I'll just do a little bit of sanding there. With that, I guess that worked good. So now we are ready to glue these together, and I'm looking for I think that's the best match right there. I'm looking for the best match, and there we have it right there. And make sure this here part is up. I check the drawing, and that's the top of these big sliding doors, so we make sure we want to glue that right. And I have a square right here that I'm going to be using to make sure I get these corners good. and this year I checked and is an outside 90, so we can use that too. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my Gorilla Glue, and I'm going to put a little bit on a piece of paper, and we'll use the back of this. And what I like to do is I like to put a couple drops on there. Actually, I'll put a little pile on there for this project, and then we'll get our toothpick and sharpen that up. And just about done here. Just another minute here and I'm going to be done with this episode. So here we got here I'll just double check how we're going to do that. Okay, we decided that. That's up. And those look pretty good together. And I'll do a little bit more rubbing on that, just to get that to match a little bit better. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our glue in. And I'll just put some. It's best not to let this glue run all over the place. And I'm just putting a drop or so every half an inch or so, and these should weld. They call it weld together. And I may after this glues initially, I may just go ahead and run some JB Weld, a bead of that down to really give it some extra reinforcement. But we'll see if maybe this Gorilla Glue holds it really good. We won't have to mess with that. So there, we got the glue on there. Get this out of the way. We got our nice flat surface here that we can use. We have our square that we're going to use to make sure we get this thing perfect. We have an outside square, so we're just going to line that up, and we're just going to, I don't know if this is the best view, but I'll give you the inside view here. We're going to line this thing up. We're going to make sure it's square, and then we're going to press these together, and we're going to hold them for 30 seconds at least, so it feels like we're doing real good. Make sure we got the square here. I also have an outside 90 I can use up here to make sure we get it just perfect. It's looking really good out here, so we just like to get this first one perfect, and then we're going to leave this for 24 hours. So that looks really good. We got the 90 degrees. I'm just going to gently press it together. It looks really good out here. And there we have it. That's our step one of our Railway Design Associates styrene structure. And it's the Freeman Manufacturing Company.